Good morning. Good morning to the members present with me online and to our viewers who are participating by watching the live stream of the webinar on the topic COVID-19 and Insight, organized by the IKAC of Anne Violet Arts and Science College. Our resource person for today, Dr. V. Naveen Kumar, founder and managing director, Imugenics Biosciences Private Limited, Perambur, is with us. He will be the resource person for today. Before we could start the program, the webinar, we would like to wait for our viewers to join in with us through this live streaming. So before that, we would like to brief about our college for the new viewers, the new participants. Anne Violet Arts and Science College. This is our first webinar organized by the IKAC cell of Anne Violet Arts and Science College. Our institution was incepted in the year 1997. It is located at Ambattur and it is managed by the Trust Nesaratnam Educational Trust. We are NAC accredited in the year 2015. At present, we are in our second cycle of NAC accreditation. We have submitted our SSR and waiting for the peer visit. We are also an ISO 9001-2015 certified institution. Our motto, Seek, Strive, Succeed. Our mission statement is to mold students to be intellectually compatible, socially responsible, professionally capable, and foster research innovation and entrepreneurial attitude to face the challenges. Our mission to emphasize on holistic education, to enhance moral values, to encourage innovation and creativity in young minds, to face the competitive world, to equip the youth to face the challenges. And to brief about our management, our chairman, founder and chairman, Chevalier Dr. N.R. Dhanapalan, a philanthropist, a politician, a social activist, and an educationist, having a stream of institutions, Anne Violet Arts and Science College, followed by Anne Violet School, Matriculation School at Chitlapakam, Anne Violet International School at Ambattur, Pudur, and Anne Violet Matriculation School at Coimbatore. We have a dynamic secretary, Mr. N.R.D. Prem Kumar, and our joint secretary, Dr. P.E.R. Premchand, our mentor and our guide at every moment. So thank you. This is about our college. And before our viewers could participate, we would like to highlight about a few instructions which will be which we are requesting the viewers to maintain. Viewers, kindly please, as you log in into the live streaming, please do subscribe the channel, and also please give your name, your designation, the college you belong to, your mail ID, so that it will be easier for us to send our e-certificates to you. Viewers, we are also welcome to give your to ask your questions. Our resource person, Dr. V. Naveen Kumar, is ready to answer it at the end of the session. He is taking a question answer session for half an hour, and you you are always welcome to question through the chat box that is available in the YouTube channel. Now, during the half an hour session of question answer, we would request the viewers to fill in the Google form, that is the feedback form for the program, and send it across so that we may be able to view the comments and also to enhance our webinar in the coming days. Before we could go into the session, online learning, as it is the future of education, and it is happening right now all around us. All of these technologies are providing access to information and skills that are previously available only to a selected few. Now, industry leaders, workforces, development, managements, and educators of all types are discovering the vast promise that e learning holds for the future of training, delivery, and education in general. This is the moment where we need to use the situation, the lockdown period, to enhance our knowledge and also be a part of the technology where we can know more about what's happening around us. A famous mathematician and an educator once said, "You can teach people everything they need to know. The best you can do is position them where they can find what they need to know when they need to know it." So now it is the time for us to know what's happening around us during this time of the pandemic, the COVID-19. It is a real situation where we get too many informations on COVID-19, but still we are unaware of about certain things and certain details. We thought the right person would be Dr. V. Naveen Kumar from the virology subject, so to highlight us about the virus. And so we have the person with us at the right moment to enlighten us about the COVID-19. Now over to our principal, Dr. Kamala Balakrishnan, for a formal welcome.
Thank you, Zafia. Good morning to all. I extend a warm welcome to everyone for today's webinar, COVID-19 and Insight. On behalf of management, staff and students of Anna Violet College, it is an honor and privilege for me to welcome today's resource person, Dr. V. Naveen Kumar, specialist virology and right person to enlighten us on this particular topic. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
I also welcome our management secretary and joint secretary. I hope they are also on this line, and faculty members, students, not only from our colleges, but also from other colleges. Welcome you all. And you know very well, today's we are in this situation where everyone is at home and everyone is finding it difficult what to do, particularly our students community. They are in such a confusion status now, and what is going to happen tomorrow, and they are not having any clear idea. But any threat comes with great opportunity. We know very well that once any threat comes, we will convert that threat into a great opportunity with the positive attitude and right action. So Anna Violet College is hosting this webinar to give knowledge about this COVID-19, how we are going to overcome this situation, and what measures we can take as an individual and also for the society. And let me congratulate the IQAC team members of Anna Violet Arts and Science College for taking a wonderful efforts to organize series of webinars in this week. Once again, I welcome you all, and over to Mrs. Zafia. Thank you.
I request Dr. Amsavadini to introduce the guest for today, the resource person.
Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you watching this live webinar. It gives me an immense pleasure and honor to introduce our speaker, Dr. V. Naveen Kumar, the founder and managing director of Imugenics Biosciences Private Limited, which is located at Perambur, Chennai. Sir has started this R&D lab in 2018 for the diagnosis of infectious disease using molecular techniques. So this lab is mainly focused on the development of kits, for diagnostic kits, which are rapid, sensitive, and cost-effective. Basically, sir is a medical microbiologist, and for the past 10 years, he's in the research field, and he's also giving consultancy for many academicians, researchers, and many of the scientists for guiding their project works. He is expertised in PCR, real-time PCR, CRISPR-Cas technology, human microbiome, DNA sequencing, Sanger and new generation sequencing, antimicrobial resistance, multilocus sequence typing, bioinformatics, molecular microbial detection, cloning, and protein synthesis. Formerly, he worked as a senior scientist in MS Swaminathan Bioincubation Center, Women's Biotech Park, and also as a visiting scientist in a Helmholtz Center for Infection Research, Germany. And sir is currently doing research in COVID-19, and he's also giving training to many government testing centers all over in Tamil Nadu. So we are very glad to have such a eminent person, to say the right person for this webinar, that is COVID-19 and Insight. Welcome, sir. Please kindly enlighten us with your presentation.
So thank you so much. So shall we start, right? I can go to this presentation.
Yes, sir.
So very good morning to everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank Anna Violet College Management as well as all the staff members for inviting me to give a talk on COVID-19, because the current pandemic is going very badly. So they thought like it will be very good if you make some awareness on COVID-19. So I thank all the staff members as well as Anna Violet Management for giving this opportunity. And the next few minutes, I will be talking to you about like some of the important facts. I'll not be go deep into the science, but because the audience are like from vast field, like, so I will not go very deep into it. And if you have any of you like from a science field, if you have questions, they can drop in, and so that we can address, because that's why we plan for 30 minutes question answer session. So I'll just quickly just go about COVID-19 and what the scenario is currently. And if you have any questions related to deep into science, and I'm happy to answer. So as we all aware that the current pandemic COVID-19, the COVID-19 is a disease, which means that coronavirus infectious disease 19. The virus which caused mainly is SARS-CoV-2. Why it is called SARS-CoV-2 is because they are more similar to the previous one, which is called SARS-CoV, which was happened in 2003. And we all know that this outbreak has happened in Wuhan, in China, and then spread it to many countries rapidly. So now worldwide it is a big problem, and many countries are facing a very big trouble because of a lot of people affected, and there's a lot of death in US and Italy and Spain, mainly in Western population. And this is just to show you that they've identified the zero patient, that is the first patients who got infected in the market, Wuhan Seafoods market in Hubei's province. And then they know that this is the first patients who have got the infection from the market. So this is just to show you the global scenario, how it's going rapidly. And so far, like it has taken more than 2.5 lakh people's life, and it crosses already 3 million cases worldwide. And if you look at the death rate, it is approximately 14% as of now. And initially it was very less. It was in 3%, something like that. But now it is around 14%. So it's slowly increasing. And this is scenario just in the beginning of April. US was on the top in the list, and also in the death rate. So India were in the around down the table, but still now the cases are keep increasing. So in few days we may go up in the cases in India as well. So this is just to put you that it's not COVID-19 is the one which is caused a pandemic in world. Previously, we had a very big pandemic called Spanish flu, which is a similar kind of respiratory infections, which is caused by a flu. It's also a virus, and which took more than 5 million people's life, and it is almost infected 500 million throughout the world. This is a similar scenario which happened in 1918. And when you talk about the origin of these coronaviruses, generally bats, especially the horseshoe bats, they are like commonly harbors these viruses in them, but without affecting the bats, because they not do any harm to the bats. They're just like a kind of carrier. So just to put you like some of the interesting fact is that not coronavirus alone is spreaded by the animals. There are many viruses and many bacterial disease also spread by zoonotic disease kind of thing. So especially like Marburg virus, Ebola, Nipah, SARS, and bird flu. If you look at the mortality rate compared to the COVID-19, If you look at the Marburg, it is very, very dangerous because the fatality rate is 81%. And for that matter, Ebola too. Similarly, Nipah and MERS-CoV virus, which is also a coronavirus, and bird flu, uh, and also seasonal flu. So those things are like really the mortality rate is very high. But the one good thing about the coronavirus is the death rate is not that high compared to the other pandemics we have encountered in the past. So we have to wait and see how things are going, because there are many things unanswered in novel coronavirus. Scientists are exploring many factors, so we have to wait and see like how these things are going. So the one difference between the other viruses and the novel coronavirus is mainly the spreading nature. When compared to the MERS and SARS-CoV, previous SARS viruses, they are spreading is very less when compared to the current novel coronavirus spreading. That's why it is called a super spreader. It spread faster compared to the other viruses. So this is just to show you that like there are many animals which act as a reservoir for not only for coronaviruses and other viruses as well, like HIV, dengue, Ebola, rabies. So we all know this, that like, so they slowly evolve from these animals and spread to human first, and step by step they get adapted. So their gene get changed. So when they each stages they move. So finally they will be stabilized in humans. Say for example, these novel coronavirus also would have taken a long time to adapt in human, and then finally they adapted in human, and then now spreading between human and human. So the adaptability is very, very important for the virus to be stable in the human system. Otherwise it will be eliminated, and also it undergo a lot of immune pressure from the human as well. So that's why you can encounter a lot of mutations in these viruses. So how these viruses would have come to human is through adaptation. So when they step by step transmit from like a main harboring bats to pangolins, that is anteaters, you might have heard of it. Like so, then they shift from the anteaters to the human. So there is a original viruses which harbor in bats, and then intermediate host, and then finally to the human. So when these things happen, they need to adapt, right? So they need to like how we human adapt for different climates and other conditions. These viruses also tend to adapt by changing their genomic content, that is a DNA or RNA, whatever it is. So because like each viruses has a unique set of genetic informations. Some of them carries DNA, some of them are RNA. For this matter of novel coronavirus, they carries a positive sense RNA. So they tend to change this and then get adapted to the new host. So this is for somebody who's coming from science background. So why corona, it is named as coronavirus, is that it looks like a sun spikes or like a crown spikes. That's why it is called as corona, because of the spike proteins on the surface of these viruses, like these violet colors. And there are a lot of proteins on the surface of these viruses, mainly spike protein, membrane protein, nucleocapsids, envelope. So these are the structural proteins of these viruses, and the viruses carry a genetic information called RNA, positive sense RNA, which is around 30 kb in genome size. And this virus size, if as such you look at, it is like around 200 nanometer. And the main difference between these SARS-CoV and the things are there are some deletions in the genetic informations. That's the main reason why this became a novel coronavirus. And those who are like know what is virus, is that viruses are very microscopic forms. If you consider as such a virus a dust particle, so it's a, if you come out of the live host, it will be a kind of a dust particle. See, it doesn't have any life by its own, so you can't see them by naked eye, and they need somebody host to replicate continuously. So this is just to show that how the structure varies between the viruses and the different particles. So if you look at the viruses, right, roughly they are like maximum you can go to 100 nanometer, and they can be seen only by electron microscopy, not even by a normal microscopy, because the limitations are there. So you should use electron microscope to visualize these viruses. These viruses are very small. And if you look at the genome size is again very small. Compared to human, we have 3.2 billion base pairs, that is DNA size, as we know that DNA base pairs together. And similarly, in these viruses, current novel coronavirus, it's very small, very tiny, 30,000 base pairs only. So, but it's doing a very big harm to the human being. So as a family, we have a tree, right? Like we have a grandfathers and fathers and mothers, cousins, like that. So like the similar way, like a coronavirus is also classified into many different groups. The main one is the nidovirus. Why the name nidovirus came is because of the nested feature of this coronavirus. There is a phenomenon called nested phenomenon in the this coronavirus. That's why it's called as nidovirus, and they're mainly classified into four groups: alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Why? Because based on the genomic variations. And one important thing here is the SARS-CoV-2, that is novel coronavirus, is not the new one. Similarly, in the past, we have encountered 6 coronaviruses, which includes many of them, like the table shows here. But majorly the SARS-CoV and MERS-CoV were the one which caused a major damage to the human. The others are like normally caused just a common cold, right? So the current one is the novel coronaviruses, as we all aware that is creating a great pandemic now, and going very serious now. So they belong to SARS-CoV viruses. There are many subgenus in the coronaviruses. These undergo SARS-B coronavirus, which means that SARS beta coronavirus. They belong to SARS beta coronavirus because they are more similar to the SARS viruses and the BAT viruses, which belong to the previous SARS virus. And as I said already, like the most of these coronaviruses, BAT act as a reservoir, and from the bats there is an intermediate host, and then from the intermediate host it spreads to the human. Say for example, we'll take just the 3-1, which is mainly caused. From the bats it goes to the civettes, and from there it causes SARS-CoV, and then again from bats to camel, and it caused Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, COVID. Now it is believed to be that anteaters act at the intermediate, and now that causes a COVID-2 to the human being. Now, similarly, there are many examples for coronaviruses how from the reservoir to intermediate and intermediate to the targets. So mainly they get adapted. They change the genome and then get adapted to the human. And this is what I said already, like horseshoe bats. These are the unique bats. Many people think that in nearby my home, there are many bats. So they may be scared that I may get the coronaviruses, but it's not true. Not all the bats are like can cause the coronaviruses. There are unique bats which harbors these coronaviruses. And recently also you might have seen that in India, there are some studies shows that from Kerala and other part of the countries, bat carried coronaviruses. Yes, true, because they generally act as a reservoir. But those coronaviruses are generally will not cause harm to the human because they tend to be more in the bats. So it takes long time them to evolve as a human infection, until unless you're not disturbing them and they're coming into the human habitats. Otherwise, it is not a big problem as such. So this I already said, like, so it's mainly from bats to the pangolins and then to human. So these are some evidence to prove that it is evolved from bats and pangolins. These are nothing but a phylogenetic tree which made from the genome of the coronaviruses, which infected human as well as from pangolins and bats. So which clearly proves that the core similarities are from bats and pangolins. And also it is similar to the previous SARS-CoV viruses, which already infected a human in 2003. This is again to show the phylogenetic tree, how close similar they are to the bats and pangolins and previous SARS-CoV. And this is same. This is just to show you that they belong to the SARS-CoV virus. So they clustered with this is the red color ones are highlighted ones are novel coronavirus currently infecting the humans. The top one is the SARS-CoV virus, which already infected the humans. So they all fall into one cluster along with the bats, which act as the reservoir. And this slide shows the possible origin of SARS-CoV-2 from pangolins and bats. What they done is that they have taken a spike protein from these reservoirs from pangolins as well as that's anteater and bats, and they've compared it. And then finally, what they've understood is that the backbone is similar to the bat virus, and spike protein is most closely related to the anteaters. So which means that there's a clue here. So it might be from bat, it have been gone to anteaters, and then they have get some mutated there, and then finally it is evolved as a human infections. So, so there are some studies which proves that this could be a chimera. Chimera means a combination of two different animals. So when we talk about chimera, they believe that these viruses might have evolved by recombination at in one single host. Might be like the SARS, I mean the coronaviruses from the bats has gone to the anteaters, and from the anteaters they might have undergone a recombination. It is very well proven mechanism in coronavirus. They often undergo recombination. So they join together, and some part of them from at pangolin joined to with the bat coronavirus, and they evolved as a new viruses. And this again show you that the spike proteins are from human now. Mostly the active residues which interacting with the ACT receptors are ACT receptors nothing but in the lungs we have some specific receptors which have the attachments for these viruses. So they are much similar to the pangolins. And these are for mainly for students who are from science background. You might have all aware that Baltimore classification, he classified mainly the viruses based on the how the mRNA is produced from the virus. Any virus it could be a DNA virus or RNA virus or single stranded, double stranded. Irrespective of that, how these viruses are making them mRNA when they enter into the cell. Based on that, he classified. So I just want to highlight here is that these viruses carries, I already said, it's a positive sense single stranded non-segmented RNA, which the moment enter into the cell, they will be directly translated into protein, and then they undergo replication and whatever the machineries they needed, they'll keep producing. So based on the Baltimore, it goes to the class 4 because it's a positive sense RNA. That's why here I want to highlight one important thing is that not only the virus, even the viral mRNA is infectious. Say, imagine that somebody has sneezed, the virus is on the surface. You're going after 4 hours. What happened is during the 4 hours, the virus might have cleaved. The outer shell membrane might have been cleaved in the environmental factors. But still, some of the viral RNA might be there on the surface. Even the mRNA is infectious. If you have a chance to get the mRNA into your body, again that will evolve as a new virus. So this is just to show you the genome structure, because they mainly have a lot of proteins in them: ORF1, ORF1b, spike protein, envelope protein, membrane protein, and nucleocapsid protein. And this is what, like, mainly they have 16 non-structural proteins. What do you mean by non-structural proteins? That they are not conforming to the structure of the virus. They mainly help them into replication, protein synthesis, assembly, so many factors, trafficking, cell trafficking, and a lot of things they'll do. And apart from that, you have some specific structural proteins which makes them into a complete viral structure, a kind of ball structure with the spikes, like mainly spike proteins, envelope protein, membrane protein, nucleocapsid, and other proteins which involved in the structure assembly. This is very important because as we are aware that the previous SARS-CoV also attached to the human lungs with AC2 receptor, that is angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor. These receptors are mainly essential for maintaining the blood pressure of a human. So that's why you might have seen that the elderly populations are more in risk, right? So because as you age, you are associated with a lot of other comorbid conditions like heart disease and asthma and COPD, a lot of factors. So when these receptors are affected, really it do some harmful to your heart. So that's why they undergo a lot of trouble as you age. So how these viruses are attached to it, it's a kind of lock and key mechanism. So it's not that to a lock, not any key can be fit in, right? So there are each lock there is specific key. Similarly, these viruses when they enter into the cell, they can't generally go and attach to any kind of receptor which is on the human surface. So they need a specific entry. Similarly, how a specific key is required to open the lock. So these viruses which go and bind specifically attached to the AC2 receptor and cause the harm to the human in the respiratory tract. So far, like throughout the world, these viruses are some mutations happened in the spike protein. they keep undergoing. So far, like the many mutations has been shown, majority in US. So most of them are in US. The most mutations occurred in US. And this is just to simply show that how these viruses enter into the cell. This is mainly for students from science background. So when they enter the cells, they just bind to the ACE2 receptor, as I said, angiotensin converting enzyme 2. Once they bound, they directly go inside, produce the proteins which are necessary for the virus to come out. That is, the translation and transcription takes place. And then once everything is produced, they assemble back and then bud out of the cell and come out. And again, they go and infect the other cells. That's how it's keep infecting the adjacent cells. And one important point is that they produce a lot of subgenomic mRNA. This is called the nested feature of the coronaviruses. So all these mRNA will have the poly A tail as well as the leader sequence from the 5'. Right, that is a unique feature of the coronavirus. And one more thing is that some of the two proteins, that ORF1A and 1B, will be produced as a polypeptides. What do you mean by polypeptides? Are many proteins together, they are actually inactive. There are specific enzyme called proteases. Two proteases are there, like peptide-like and the C3L proteases, which mainly go and cleave the polypeptide into a small active peptides, and then they cause the actual harm to the cells. Right. This is what I said, the subgenomic mRNA. I'm not going deep into the subgenomic mRNA. So it's mainly, there are different fragments of viruses are produced by the mechanism of discontinuous transcription. So somebody who's interested, you can go and see what you mean by discontinuous transcription, which means that when the transcription takes place, at one point, the RNA RDRP, that RNA dependent RNA polymerase, will jump to the 5' end and attach the leader sequences. That's how it produces a lot of subgenomic mRNA, but none of the subgenomic mRNA will be packed into the cell. Only genomic mRNA will be packed into the cell. So when we started, there were like 3 types of viruses mutated, but now it is keep going. Recently, it was 8 different coronaviruses emerged, and now currently, as of today, there were 10 different type of novel coronaviruses. Which means, what do you mean by 10 different coronaviruses? Is that there are some minor changes in these viruses when they adapt to each climate and ethnicity. That is, different population they need to adapt. So when they go adapt new different species, different human, then they get changes in the genome. This is how it is. So far, like as of today, there were like 17,000 genome from different part of the world is ready now. This will help us in really identify the good vaccine candidate, because whether the vaccine what we are developing will cover the entire population or not. So that clues it will give you. So how it spreads? Basically, it spreads. So many people think that it spreads via air, right? But it's not true. It's mainly spread by the air droplets. Somebody who's infected, when they cough or sneeze, these air droplets are coming out. They travel in a very high speed, like say 10 meter to 100 meter per hour. And then when they're traveling to at such a high speed, somebody to the near vicinity, they can get these air droplets. And if some of the mucosa, like your nasal mucosa, oral mucosa, or corneal mucosa is exposed, this virus has an easy entry point. So then they can do. That's why we ask everybody to wear masks, because they reduce some extent the viruses will be limited. So the main two areas what it affecting is the throat and lungs. As we know that these are the two areas which is mainly exposed to the environment. So when you breathe or when you inhale oxygen, so your virus through a droplet can enter into that, and then it can cause a throat infection, and slowly it can enter into your lungs and cause severe pneumonia as well. So I just show you a short video how it is do the this pathogenesis. So as we know that this is a SARS-CoV-2, which is mainly causing this one. This is a spikes. Because of the spike only it got a name called coronaviruses. The disease mainly caused by this coronavirus is known as COVID-19. So somebody who's infected, it's mainly by throat and lungs. And what happens when the virus comes inside to your human body? And how exactly your body develop pneumonia? So what is the mechanism involved with? And how vaccine could help in preventing pneumonia? these viruses. So as such, I said, like, it's a dust particle. It need a live cell to grow. So without any live cell, it can't grow. It would be like a just dust particle. So the main important point when you look at the virus is that a genetic material, which is an RNA, and a protein shell. It's a blue color. It's a protein shell which protects them from the environment. And the yellow color or orange color is your lipid layer, which mainly help in the attachment to the host cell. And these are the spike proteins, which is mainly for the attachment to the ACE2 receptors, right? So the moment your cells comes inside, the virus comes inside your body, these are the blue colors, the spike protein, and some of them are E protein and membrane protein. So they mainly attach to the ACE2 receptors. So you see now here somebody is sneezing. These are minute air droplets carrying a lot of viruses in them. So the viral load differs between the individual, how efficiently they harbor the viruses. The ones they enter into the nearby person, so they go and attach their throat. So now you see slowly they are identifying the receptors. As is the lock and key mechanism, they go and attach, and slowly endocytosis happen. And then they release all the genetic material which is necessary for them to do all the process inside the human cell. So these are like genetic material. They gone inside now. So as such, if you look at the viruses, they doesn't need, this is because RNA virus, they doesn't need any mechanism. They directly go to the ribosome, produce a protein. So now you see, you look at the rough endoplasmic reticulum, carry the ribosome, the mRNA came inside, they produced protein straight away because they doesn't need a transcription process at all. So they bypass that mechanism. They now all the proteins are produced, assembling onto the membrane, and finally the virus bud out, and it's ready for infecting the next cell. So how you can develop a pneumonia when these viruses infect, right? So if you look at some people from the throat, they move to the lungs. If they are not limited, then they are going to affect the lungs. So mainly you have trachea, bronchi, and then the terminal bronchioles, and then finally you have a alveolar sacs. These are small balloons which keeps pumping, and then what they do is like they keep getting the oxygen from the environment and pull the carbon dioxide out. So they push out all the waste material out, to simply put in, and take the clear good oxygen for the all the vital organs. You see now all the oxygens are like coming in, and all the carbon dioxides are going out of the capillaries to the alveoli. So when you inhale, you take the oxygen, and when you exhale, like you are sending out the carbon dioxide out. So this is the main organ which is essential for oxygen supply. So when these got infected by these viruses get accumulate, and then the cilia get damaged, and your this is the main problem in coronaviruses. Our macrophages engulf all these viruses, and they produce a lot of chemicals which talk to each other, and that's why called cytokine storm. You might have heard of cytokine storm. So when these balloons keep pumping, if your immune system react too much, then there will be a lot of fluid accumulation, and that's lead to the blockage of the small air vesicles and lead to a lobar pneumonia. And finally, it goes to their bronchopneumonia, and a complete lung is affected. And finally, somebody who is not able to breathe, you will have a difficulty in breathe. A lot of symptoms you'll get: coughing, chest pain, fever and chills, confusion. Again, these symptoms are not like unique and they are changing now. And somebody who's not able to breathe, they'll be put into ventilation. And because they are not able to breathe by their own, so the ventilation now will take care your oxygen supply. And so this is how the from the infection to the pneumonia. So it mainly depends on the age and ethnicity, a lot of factors, your comorbid conditions, how old you are, and you have any comorbid conditions, a lot of factors. So these, I'll just stop here. This is mainly how vaccine works. I'll have some couple of slides back. I'll show you how this vaccine works. So as I said, that it spreads through the droplets, and these droplets can carry to some distance. And many people think that it is because of air, but I want to say here that it is not through air. So what happened is here is whatever the air we inhale, it's a pure air. So if you're in near vicinity, somebody who infected, even by just like the talking also spill out some air droplets. So that can carry it by the air, and then it can cause infection. Just like that, air cannot act as a causative agent for the viruses. So mainly the air direction, air force, everything favors the spread of these disease. That's why we tell everybody to wear mask. And so just to put in very simple form, masks act as like a kind of we use in our day-to-day life in homes, right? As sieving for flowers and other things. So we, if you would have seen that your mom or sister, they might be using different kind of sieving materials in different sizes. So which mainly the aim is to filter out different size particle. The same way the mask act as, and each mask has different porosity, that is the pore size which can allow inside. If you look, this is dark, the bigger green, it's a hair size, and the next one is the surgical mask, where its size is it can allow 2 to 10 micron. So below this, it can easily pass through. So virus definitely can pass through, but it can resist the spread. I mean, the how effectively it can reduce the spread when the near vicinity, as well as the surgical mask, which is much smaller in the porosity. So this is mainly who already infected, or a physician or somebody who's working close contact with them. They need to wear the this N95 mask. So here I just to put you like why it is called a super spreader. Very simply, MERS and SARS-CoV took a long time to spread to 1,000 people, but SARS coronavirus just took 48 days to spread to 1,000 population in just a matter of few days. That's why it is called a super spreader. So it can rapidly spread to many people. You see here the dead dots here is the first person who's infected. He is contacting 2 individuals. Again, one is getting infected. The other one is spreading to many people. That's why it is called a super spreader. So already I told you about super spreader, and generally they take 14 days. So the incubation period is 14 days. It varies between the individual. Some people will show within 2 days symptoms. Some people will take 3 days, and it varies because your immune system react very differently between the individual. So it's 14 days. That's why you quarantine for 14 days. And generally who get infected will have different symptoms. And if you look at these viruses, right, they are behaving very strange. Each and every day we are getting new discoveries and new updates on them. Now even WHO has said some of the newer symptoms like associated with chill and other factors as well. So fever, tiredness, dry cough. You will not have a lot of running nose as such in case of COVID-19, and you have a sore throat. And this is very important. Some of the people will have diarrhea. So now slowly people who are infected with coronaviruses are developing corona. This happened even in case of coronavirus as well, right? So this is not new to the novel coronaviruses. These coronaviruses are like somehow they known to cause diarrhea. So there are some coronaviruses which is specifically associated to enteric disease, that is called human enteric coronaviruses. So we need to analyze whether these has some association with the this diarrheal response. So already I told you the cytokine storm is the main problem why people undergo organ failure as well as the death. I just put in a simple form that what is cytokine storm is that how we communicate through language. Each other, we communicate and deliver the response from each other. Similarly, cell talk to each other by sending chemicals. That's why it is called as cyto. Cyto means cell, kine means chemical. A cell secreted chemicals which can go and tell the other cell, hey, somebody has come from outside. He looks like a foreign, so we need to attack him. Please come in. So they come and attack them, and then they produce a lot of cytokines again. So that lead to the dangerous to the human body. So that's how you develop fever and low cell counts, organ failure, rashes, and so on. And there are some commonalities between the COVID-19 and other cold as well as the flu. So many people nowadays in home, even if you get some minor cold or cough, you tend to imagine that, oh my God, I would have got COVID-19, right? Or coronaviruses. But don't get panic, because there are symptoms which are like similar to other cold or common cold or flu. So you need to know like when you need to go for testing as well as to consult a physician. So this already I told you like how fast it can spread compared to a flu. Flu spreads very less, whereas the COVID-19 spread much faster. So there are some point and consider. So when you, as I said, when you're at home, you have some of the symptoms of COVID-19, then you can rank them or put the points to them and see how likely you can be a COVID-19 infected. So these are the points. Like, I have a cough, yeah, give 1 point. I have a cold, give 1 point. I have a diarrhea, again you give 1 point. Like that, if you have a travel history, you have a fever, so many things. So if you put these into a kind of points, you can come to a conclusion that I may likely can have a COVID-19 infection. Then you can go to the nearby physician and get diagnosed, and then you can, if you need, you can get treated. And this is just to put you that many people think that it is not affecting all, only it affects the elderly population, right? But it's not so. It affects all the population, but majorly the problem goes to the elderly population because of the other comorbid conditions like BP, that is blood pressure, other cardiac problems, COPD, that is, and then asthma, a lot of factors. So diabetes as well. Even recently in UK, as they've said that even obesity is a factor. Even somebody who is obese, they will be much more get dangerous symptoms than compared to somebody who's lean. Right. So one important thing is that it is affecting very lessly in children's, and there are a lot of hypotheses put forward, like ACE2 receptor less expression in children's, the vaccination, immune stasis, lot of things. And you might have heard of a lot of asymptomatic people. That is, in Chennai, in many part of in India, many people are not showing any signs, but they are COVID infected, right? So that is basically because of the immune system, or the virus is not that aggressive to cause a disease. So that we need to get to clear. There is a similar phenomenon called typhoid Mary. Without knowing that she harbors a salmonella, she spread a lot of people salmonella that causes diarrhea. So similarly, we have a lot of asymptomatic cases in COVID-19. So same thing can happen if somebody who goes out and carries the viruses, they can, without knowing they have the infection, they can spread to many people. So if you look at the positive side of this, they may be helping in a kind of bringing in herd immunity, which is called community immunity. Without getting infected, the whole community will be get immunized. That is called the herd immunity. So that is also likely possible when most of us are asymptomatic. And it is mainly diagnosed by a mechanism called real-time PCR. Many of you might have seen that. So everywhere, like they take nasal swab, throat swab, take the RNA, extract them, and go to a technique called real-time PCR, which means that in a real time you can visually see that the virus is there or not in a tube. So a curve will come. So you look at here the positive, there's a yellow color curve, and based on at what time of point it crosses the threshold line, you can tell them the patient is positive or negative. So here one important point I would tell you is that the diagnosis is very, very critical, because you can go wrong here, because you can tell somebody who is positive, you can tell them as a negative by your test. So what are the things you need to keep in mind when you diagnose is that how properly you collected the sample from a patient, how likely they would have got infected, and how efficiently I've extracted RNA, and how efficiently I've done the real-time PCR. Because these are very essential to tell the results as good as it is, because there are a lot of possible for given false negative results. Then what happens is this fellow go outside and keep spreading the viruses to others. And there are a lot of rapid tests. You might have heard that India has bought a lot of rapid tests from China, but none of them are working good, right? So these are basically detecting the antibody. And please remember that these are not meant to diagnosis. These are mainly to screen how many people are infected in the community. That is what very important. So this is just to show that IgG and IgMs are produced later after the infection. So the IgM produced after 9 days of infection, and IgM produced little later, and IgM stay for only 39 to 40 days. After that, only IgG takes care of your body. So when you diagnose this earlier, you may tend to say that the patient is not having infection, right? So you have to wait for some days, because actually you doesn't know when these people have got infection and when you are diagnosing them. So a lot of chances go wrong when you're doing this, and also sensitivity of these tests are less compared to the real-time PCR. So this is just to mainly show you that there are a lot of drugs tried, and none of them seems to be that promising. Like for example, hydroxychloroquine, Trump also said that the drug can do magic, right? But it's not really so. So like from a personal point of view, I generally feel that the hydroxychloroquine is really toxic because there are a lot of side effects there. And apart from that, remdesivir is tried. And there's a lot of studies, but there are a lot of limitations. That's why we didn't get a very good promising drugs. There are monoclonal antibodies, for example, tocilizumab, which is a monoclonal antibody which can specifically bind to IL-6 receptors, because IL-6 is a cytokine which is produced during this infection. So to prevent the cytokine storm effect, they produce antibody which goes and bind to the block the receptor which can bind to the IL-6. So there are a lot of drugs in the trial, but still, as of today, we didn't get any drug which is very promising against novel coronavirus. And there's a lot of viral vaccines has been developed totally. There are 8 different kind of vaccines are in the world. There are a lot of trials going on. Evenly also, like recently you might have seen that Italy has got some vaccine, Israel has developed the vaccines, and so many countries are coming up with different vaccines. But as such, this will take a long time because there are a lot of adverse reactions associated with the vaccines. So we need to wait and watch that how effective these viruses are. I mean, the vaccines are, once the vaccine goes inside, sometimes rather than giving you protection, they can do some harmness, right? For example, in case of dengue, somebody who's vaccinated, they are much more prone to get serious reactions when they encounter dengue, which one who is not vaccinated. So to simply put that, who's not vaccinated is much safer. Somebody who's vaccinated, they are much more dangerous in getting the adverse reaction of the viruses. So those things, something called ADE, antibody dependent enhancement, and there's a lot of factors, cross reactivity. They can go and bind to some of the neurons. So in case of herpes, there's something called transverse myelitis. So there are a lot of factors when you talk about vaccine. It's not that overnight you can produce a vaccine and give it to somebody, right? So it's highly impossible. We need to wait and watch. It will take some time. And I would appreciate that this pandemic has gave us a lot of knowledge and insights that we can act much rapid, because usually when you talk about vaccines, they take longer days, sometimes even 10 years, 15 years. But this dramatically reduced. It has taken only within 9 months, we may have a very good vaccine candidate, including the trials. So as I said, they take longer time. You need a pre-clinical trials in animals, and then phase 3 clinical trials, so smaller individuals, and then one big set of population, and then finally a bigger population, and also look at the ethnicity, whether it is covering the large population or not. Finally go for a massive vaccination. How you feel that this vaccination will help? In case of none of them are vaccinated, then you have a chance of spreading to everybody. But when you immunize, when the viruses goes to the immunized people, then there is a dead end, which means that from the immunized individual, the virus will not go to the next person. That's how the immunization will help. Similarly, the herd immunity. Herd immunity also can come from vaccination as well as from the generally infecting the entire population. In this scenario, Sweden has done a dramatic work where what they've done is they didn't do the lockdown. They said, just go around, do your normal work. Why? Because they want to expose everybody to a novel coronaviruses, so that imagine that to be put in a simple form, if vaccination is given to a community, there are chances to lose lives, right? Say imagine that 100 people are vaccinated, there's a chance for 5 people to die because of the adverse reaction of vaccine. So what they have done is, why can't we take that risk here by putting all the people into the routine work, so that they generally get immunized, so they feel natural immunization is much better than the vaccination. So also like plasma therapy is available. When somebody is infected, after some days, they'll take the blood from them and they do a process called plasmapheresis, purify the antibody from them and inject somebody who's critically ill, right? So because they need to be saved. These viruses just go and block the viruses and inhibit the binding to the receptors. That's how it saves the life. It has been proven in many cases, but as of now, COVID-19, there's a lot of trial happened. Even in India, you might have seen that ICMR is giving approval for convalescent plasma therapy. But it is not that promising, because one important thing is that not all the individual produce same amount of antibody. You differ in amount of antibody producing against the viruses. I may produce less or you may produce more. So when you give the antibody, somebody will not have very efficient antibody to neutralize at all. So then they will not, help them to get rid of these viruses. And apart from that, there's a lot of problem like screening them, screening for other viruses, screening for other any risk protein they have in them. So there's a lot of things need to be done. It's really cumbersome. So as such, now it is not a very good strategy for the treatment. So how we feel that this quarantine will help, I'll just show you a small video. So if this is just to show that if we keep the quarantine, it will really help. So this is a normal case. The red ones are people who are already infected, keep moving around and spreading the viruses to the blue ones. And the pink ones are who's getting cured out of the viruses. And you see the top, the curve is dramatically going high and coming down, right? So many people may die and many people may recover. So this is a normal scenario. But when you talk about quarantine, so when you talk about quarantine, you tend to put the people into the place not moving around. So you see now from a quarantine to place, a person is moving, a red ball is moving. So he's now tend to affect. But you look at the curve, now the curve has dramatically differed now. So there's a peak, small peak. Again, there's a small peak again because the next population is also affected. So with the simple quarantine, you can do a dramatic change in spreading. So quarantine as well as maintaining the distance, because you, as you are aware that if you keep the distance, you can really reduce the risk of getting infected. So quarantined as well as maintaining the distance, you see the now curve, a small flat curve, it's going, because when you keep distance, you less likely to get infected from the other person. So at the same time, if you keep the extensive distancing, quarantine as well as extensive distancing, the curve will be almost flat, only few people will be infected. And one more important thing is that this will take a longer time to infect the entire community, so that your the medical equipment and everything will be available for everyone, hospital beds and everything. But suddenly, if all the population is getting affected, you are undergo less equipment, so that not all will be efficiently get treated. So this is just to show that how lockdown will effectively decrease the cases. You see, when you have only few days lockdown and the curve goes up, and then continuous lockdown, again the curves go up. The 3 consecutive lockdown, the curve go flat. If you continuously lockdown for many days, the curve completely go flat. And so if you ask me when it will be contained, definitely the virus is not going to be in some days. This will be keep circulating in humans until unless all the population is immunized or they're naturally infected. This virus will be definitely in some human. And even if you open the lockdown, the virus, even one person is infected, they can tend to infect the others also. So ultimately, just put in a simple form, if entire population is infected or entire population immunized, then only the virus can be eradicated from the population. So I just wanted to show quickly some of the facts, how it is. So when somebody sneezes or cough, they get these viruses in the hands. When they go and touch some of the common things which we others can touch, like ATM machines, money, lift. So from there you can carry. That's why we tell them everybody to wash your hands. And please remember that somebody sneeze, if it comes on your skin is a physical barrier which will never allow the viruses to go until unless you have an abrasion in your skin. If you have an abrasion, definitely the virus can enter and it can go as a viremia. But as such, the skin acts as a physical barrier which will never allow this. So only through your mucosa it can really enter into that. I just want to tell that in detail. And there are studies which have proven that these viruses can stay in many materials for some days, like in a plastic water bottle, it can 2 to 3 days. In air, it can stay for 3 hours. And in case of wooden and glasses, it can stay for 4 days. And in case of metal key, it can stay for 5 days, right? So we should aware that these viruses can stay this many days in these things. And when you cough or sneeze, please don't use your hands, just use your elbow. So that even if you touch some of the common points, the virus will not be transmitted. So it'll be only in elbow, because elbow will not come into contact with any of the material when you touch, right? Also, when you shake the hands with your friends or somebody who invite. And this depends on many factors like your local temperature, humidity, and what is the surface condition of the material, and what is the viral load from that patient who is already infected. So these depends on many factors. And if you ask me, when do I wash hands? So you have to wash your hands. There are some certain things when you meet somebody who's infected, and when you cough or sneeze, before cooking, before eating, and after handling your pets, you need to wash your hands definitely. And please remember that don't put a lot of hand rubs on your skin and go near to the flame, because they can really harm your skins, because these contain a lot of alcohols and propanols. So they can really harm your skin. Immediately you get your skin get damaged because of burns. And this is very important. In case of Italy, they found that why the cases has dramatically gone up is because generally European population have the habit of wearing their shoes and many stuffs inside when they enter. So generally, as an Indian, we leave our footwear when we enter the home, right? But in Europe, I've been there, so I've seen. So generally, they will never, remove the footwears when they come from outside. So that has made a lot of trouble to them, and now they've understood this is because of that. So when you enter home, there are certain things you need to follow. So please remove your footwears and clean your hands, wash your hands, and then don't touch anything, and keep some of them which you took from outside, so that by doing this you can really reduce the spreading. So from the pets, it cannot transmitted to the human, but from human it has been shown that it can spread to pets. And flies generally don't act as a carrier for transmitting these viruses, but certain cases it is caused by diarrhea. If these flies goes and sit on the feces and then come into your food material, then definitely they can cause. Generally, climate doesn't act much to these viruses, because generally climate has a very good influence on the virus spread, but generally here it is not. So other vaccines like Pneumovac generally cannot prevent, because these are bacterial vaccines, which nothing to do with the viral vaccines. There are many claims that BCG vaccines can cure COVID-19, but it is generally not curing the COVID-19. They act as a kind of palliative strategy, because they give you a trained innate immunity, which means that they already boost your immune system, though it will help in fighting against the coronaviruses indirectly. And taking hot bath definitely will not help you, because even though you take bath or you keep your body cool, your body temperature remains to be 37 degrees Celsius, will not do anything with the removing of viruses. There is no specific medicine as such, I said already. Keep exploring. There are many diseases in trial. Many people may think that if I receive parcel from China or many material from other countries, I may get chance of getting infected, but it's not really so, because as I said already, there are some days viruses can stay in a non-living material and then they'll die. So it's nothing to worry about it. And many people think that garlic can cure. Yes, of course, garlic has many antimicrobial property, but as such, there is no proven mechanism for COVID-19 to show that it can really act on the coronavirus. This already told you, like, it is affecting all the populations, not only the older population. Yes, they do have very severe reactions in older population, but it affects all the age group. It's not transmitted by mosquito, because if you look at the transmission mode, it's through the droplets mainly, and there are many other viruses like dengue, chikungunya. They are the mosquito-borne viruses. Yes, of course, by credit cards or handling the money or some common source, I already told you, you have a chance, but try to wash your hands after handling all these things. Many people think that hair dryers can clearly kill the coronaviruses, but it's not so, because the time you expose to the hair, this is very less, and also the heat coming out of is not that much efficient to kill the coronavirus. Cold weather definitely not able to kill the viruses. Sometimes it even favors the viruses. Many people think that if I eat non-veg, many of the non-vegetarians are very much scared nowadays that they may get infected when they eat this meat, right? But definitely not so. As you are aware that in India, definitely we'll cook everything thoroughly and then eat, right? So whenever we handle all this, if we properly cook them and eat them, and definitely it will not do any harm to us. And disinfectant, yes, if you wash your disinfectant with your floors, very good disinfectant, definitely it can inactivate all the viruses. And somebody who's infected, definitely you need to wash their beds and other material in a hot water, as well as some disinfectants. Some many of them think that if you even Trump told, I think it's so what he said is that I could drink the disinfectant and I get rid of coronavirus, right? But it's not so. Don't do that, please, because these are chemicals which can meant to be for inanimate objects, not for the humans or animals, right? So because they are really harm your body, and there are many people who think that excessive alcohol can, because the alcohol kills, right? So drinking can really affect, but drinking will not do that, but it may adverse your coronaviruses. As this already I told you. And no, none of the antibody will work against them, but they may help you in avoid secondary infections. And continuous nasal washing with saline may help you get rid of some things, but not by coronaviruses. Yes, of course, drinking of a lot of waters will help you, as like other viruses. Keep hand washing. In case your sanitizer goes on, you can use any normal soaps, which because generally the detergents can kill the viruses fast. Yeah, of course, sometimes feces can lead to fecal oral route transmission can happen because these viruses are shedding in the feces. Uh, uh, Sometimes people will get repeat infections. Yes, of course, it can happen. There are different strategies. Might be that they've got a new strain or reactivated. Sometimes the viruses goes latency in some of these areas, like for example, varicella zoster virus, which goes latency in trigeminal nerve of human. So they later can activate it and cause a disease. So similarly, these viruses may be, but many, as I said, like many things are like not unaware. So we need to get to know that how these viruses are getting reactivated. And some places they have found that the genetic material is still present. That's why it's showing positive. Already I told you the temperature is not going to affect much. This also I told you, drinking some bleach or methanol not going to help you anyway. It will harm your body and you may die also. And many people think that 5G spreaded in Europe, many places, especially in UK, they have damaged most of the 5G towers, thinking that it spread through 5G, but it's not so. But in terms of other points, it's really 5G and other technologies are really harm to the human being. As you might have seen that 2.0, the birds are like dramatically reduced because these are waves are very dangerous. Even in human, it may lead to extinct of human species also. So as we advance through technology, we may need to face a lot of problems. And there are other factors also. Sesame oil can, because these are like no facts to prove that these oils can really prove that. And then many people think that smoking can help to get rid of COVID-19, but not so. It will put you more risk because your lungs are already exposed to damage. Of course, the temperature scanner really help to detect the patients, but sometimes what happens if you're asymptomatic, it will not help to identify whether, because it's only detect you have a fever or not. Of course, when you go to the markets or somebody, like you need to wash your hands. So yes. So as of now, though, there is no drug. Trials are going on, and many people think that if I expose to UV light, I can get rid of COVID-19, but not so, because UV light will generally kill the viruses and bacteria, but it is harm to the human being because you may get skin cancer. So it never spread from the dead persons because they're completely covered. Even from the dead person, they will never sneeze or breathe. So unless you come in contact with the body fluid, you will not get any infection. So they're generally covered in a cloth which acts as like a balloon. So none of the air can come out of the balloon, which is tightly packed, even if you how hard you press. So and also they put a lot of sodium hypoxychlorite and other stuff so that the virus has even a chance to come out, they will be definitely killed. So finally, to end, in our soldiers are fighting in the border against known enemies, visible enemies, I would say, and making our India protected. Similarly, these real warriors like policemen, nurses, doctors, and technicians, scientists, and healthcare workers, and the cleaners. So they're really working hard for us. We need to maintain the social distance, and whatever we need to do for avoid the spreading, we should do as a citizen. And finally, one thing is that if somebody is near to your home, or like somebody is dead, don't they doesn't expect even the physician or somebody, they doesn't expect a gunshot from us or not a flower. They need a humanity. You need to allow them to do their last spiritual things. So please remember that they never spread from the dead bodies because the precautions are taken. So even like the five sense animals does a lot of help to the other animals. As a human being, we claim that we have a sixth sense, right? So we should keep help each other, give foods, and help each other, and to stand together and combat with the coronaviruses. Finally, it is mask is better than ventilator. Home is better than ICU. If you want to be in ICU, please roam around. And prevention is better than cure. And this is not the Meganthi because many people think that it's a Meganthi, but it is like how really, if you look at your hands under the microscope, a lot of microbes. So please wash your hands. Keep wash your hands to get rid of these coronaviruses. Not only coronaviruses, after coronavirus is gone, also we should have the habit of washing our hands before eating food or something which is essential to do with our body. Thank you so much. And finally, to end up, don't mess up with the nature, because we always do a lot of mess up with the nature, deforestation, killing animals. This is one of the reasons why we got the coronavirus today. So my personal point of view is that whenever we go against nature, nature gives back us a lot. So this is one of the best example how coronaviruses evolved from animals when we do some harm to them. Right now we are in cages, they are free. As Amsa said, now I'm giving a lot of training to many labs in Tamil Nadu government medical colleges. I could see when I drive through these roads, these animals I could see really they were very happy, right? So they are now very, very happy. So that we should now learn from these coronavirus lockdown. What are the mistakes we done previously and how we can rectify those things, right? Thank you so much for your patience for listening. I'm happy to get questions.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
Though
you.
it was a little subject oriented, the terms were very scientific, but yet it was very informative. It is always good to know our attacker, our enemy. You very well, you mentioned our people are fighting at the borders, and we are here fighting against this COVID-19. It is always good to know our attacker so that we can face the attacker with more confidence, and we can have better strategies to face the attacker,
True.
and always be safe from the attack of the enemy. A corporate e-learning executive, sir, I'm giving this time for you to relax for a few seconds.
Yeah, sure.
A corporate e-learning executive once said, in times where small instructors led classrooms tend to be the exception, electronic learning solutions can offer more collaborations and interactions with experts and peers, as well as a higher success rate than the live alternative. So that's what is happening at the moment. The present moment is very digitalized, it's technology oriented, and we educators are using this platform for further more collaborations, and where we can have peer views, just like we had Dr. V. Naveen Kumar highlight about the coronavirus, the scientific part as well as the practicality in facing this COVID-19. And now we have a few questions. And before that, I would like to thank a participant from Sri Narayana Guru College from Coimbatore, Kaveri College, Trichy, and from Chennai, Shashu Jain College, Chennai National College, Mohammed Satak College, Wales University, St. Joseph's College, and last but not the least, I would like to thank our students of Anna Valley Arts and Science College and faculty members who participated in the live. So now there are a few set of questions, sir. We
Yes,
would
ma'am.
and for the viewers, at this time during the question session, we would request you to fill in the feedback forms and pass it on so that it will be easier for us.
Yes, ma'am. So,
1 minute, sir.
so there was some question.
Yes, the first question is, can we create coronavirus in a lab? Is it possible?
There are many things like it has been developed from Wuhan labs like that, right? So yes, of course, there are like chances to you can develop any viruses in the lab because it's just a nucleotide basis. You can synthetically then make it, but it's really difficult to make them adapt to an environment until unless it is naturally evolved, right? Yes, of course you can make it, but as of now, there is no clear evidence that it has been man-made because a lot of research has proven that it is naturally origin. There is no scientific data to prove that it is originated from the lab. So
Sir,
that,
excuse me, one question one person has asked whether that is like any other virus, whether it cures by itself or we have to undergo medication.
yes, of course, like these viruses can go off as such because they are most of them are self-limiting. As I said earlier, there are patients who have some other comorbid condition, they are in high risk. But still, as I said, like there are a lot of strategies we still need to know as the virus is concerned, because many things are unaware, like how these viruses produce a lot of pathomechanism is not clear, because some study says that it is also producing thrombus, which causes a stroke and a lot of other problems as well. So yes, of course, it is self-limiting. As you are aware that a lot of population in India is symptomatic and getting cured out of them. So sometime you may need a treatment.
There's another question from a person. The person is asking whether COVID-19 will spread through vegetables and fruits and flowers, and also how long the virus stays alive in the plastic covers.
Yeah, as I said, in the plastic bottles, it can stay for 2 to 3 days. Similarly, it can stay because the material is more or less the same, so it can stay for 2 to 3 days as such in a plastic cover. And as such, a vegetable is concerned, yes, of course, the viruses. We have done some studies to screen the presence of bacteria in vegetables. So they are really present in the vegetables, but not COVID-19. Of course, yes, in vegetables also COVID-19 can present. For example, you go to the market and buy the vegetables. Somebody who's selling you might have seen now in Coimbatore, a lot of cases emerged because of Coimbatore people who got infected, right? So when they sell they definitely the vegetables and other material can really harbor the viruses. The moment you take that and without washing your hands or without washing, if you tend to have them, then they definitely have a highly chance to get an infection.
Sir, next question. SARS and Ebola not affected India, but coronavirus is affecting us. So what is the reason for behind it?
Yeah, because you see that those days, like the mobilization of people throughout the world is not that much, right? And also when these viruses came in, they took a very effective measures and contained the population. So like how we quarantined. So when the effective measures were taken, contain these virus, I mean the entire population, there's a less likely to chance that the virus is spread to the other community. So in case of COVID-19, we failed to do that. So that is one of the biggest mistake we did. And if the moment we came to know that in December itself, the virus is coming in, so you could have closed all the borders, then the less likely that we could have had a pandemic, current pandemic. So mainly that is the main two reasons, like the not contained and also a lot of traveling across the world.
So there's another question saying, how long should we worry about becoming sick from touching a contaminated surface? After touching a contaminated surface, what is the time period that we are prone to get infected?
Yeah, so as I said, when you as such touch your contaminated surface, until unless with that hand, if you're not touching your nose or your mouth or eyes, you're very, very less likely to get infected, because as I said, the skin is a physical barrier which will never allow the virus to go. If you have some abrasion in your hands, through these abrasions, like cuts, small cuts, the virus can enter inside. Apart from that, it will never, like, it can stay for your hands. If the moment you wash your hands, after 2 hours also, if you wash your hands, the virus will go off. But imagine that after touching that surface, you might be touching many other surfaces. So you are touching many areas, spreading the viruses, right? So that is one thing. Another thing is, like, the moment you wash your hands, the virus will go off. So if you're not touching your either any of the mucosal surface, it's safe.
Sir, one more question. Whether it is also spreading in animals, only in human beings?
Yeah, so there are limited cases in animals. You might have seen in Netherlands and in US and in China. There are some 4-5 cases where from human to their pets it has been transmitted, but not the other way around, from animals to humans. So it is spreading, but again, once they goes into the animals, they need some time to adapt to the animal host, because the host is now new, and they take some time, and then they will into the animals, and they can even come back to the human. But as of now, it is confined to the human and to the animals. But in animals, it's not showing that much severe symptoms, which means that they need to adapt the new host. So we have done some analysis on that. The virus is not really mutating in animal.
So there's another question.
Similar to human. Yes.
Okay, there's another question. Does normal masks helpful to prevent the infection, or only the specially designed N95 masks are helpful?
Yeah, so I can show you one figure. Maybe I should. Okay. I think I don't have. So the main thing is that the normal mask is meant to prevent the air droplets to go in a very dramatic speed. So even if you wear the normal mask, it will not completely free from the viral infections. So what is mainly the advice is that when you wear a mask, what happens is that if you're in a distance, even that person sneeze or cough, the air droplets travel, but it will not immediately goes into a mucosal surface, because there is a barrier. Of course, this can, even if such a high speed comes, they can even cross this mask, normal mask. But in case of N95 mask, it will reduce the risk of getting a virus particle inside your thing. So that's why whenever you get infected, you wear N95 mask, or somebody who's working close in contact with these patients, they should wear N95 mask, and generally others can wear a normal surgical mask.
Sir, one more question.
Dr. The next.
Sir, one. Sir, what about that Nilavembu Kudineer and Kapasura Kudineer? Will it be helpful in developing immune system?
Of course, there's a lot of things there, like, because these our traditional medicines are generally known to act as immune boosters. So yes, of course, we have done some studies in collaboration with the MGI University, so which shows that some of them can really act as an immunomodulator. But they generally boost your immune system. But as such, if you ask me whether it can kill the viruses, we need to do studies and prove that it is really killing the viruses. We have got some lead from the study research, but we are yet to prove that. Yes, ma'am.
So the next question, sir. 50% of virus strains shows spike mutation. So does it has any role in binding to the ACE2 receptors? that is after undergoing mutation,
Okay.
will has the efficiency to bind to the receptors?
Yeah, so very good question. So yes, we do come across a lot of mutation spike protein. But the very interesting thing is that when we started analyzing these spike protein, we saw that the residues, that is the main residues which interacting with the spike proteins, there are very, very, very less mutations. So what you talk about, the 50% mutation, is that the rest of the areas of spike protein, not the key that is called receptor binding domain of the spike protein, which interact with the AC2 receptors. So for example, we have done almost in 200 sequences so far. We have seen that the residues which mainly interact with the AC2 receptor are very intact, and some of other regions are also intact in all the viruses. So this gives a good information, and also we should be happy that the virus is not rapidly mutating. There are some minor changes, and some mutations are synonymous as well, which means that nothing changed in your structure of the spike protein, or nothing adverse can happen. So this proves your vaccine can be very much effective when introduce these areas which are highly conserved in the spike protein, which mainly interact with AC2 receptors.
Sir, one more interesting question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is plasma therapy efficient if antigenic variation is seen in the virus?
A very good question. So yes, of course, if antigenic variation is there, the antibody will be definitely different, because the CDR regions will be different in those antibodies when you compare to the new strain. So definitely they will not able to protect the other individual. That's why I said there's a lot of problem in convalescent plasma therapy. It's not much effective compared to the other diseases, because in some of the viruses, the antigenic structures are still more conserved compared to the coronaviruses. So definitely it will not help if you have a different strains, because the antibodies will be different.
Okay. Is there any
question,
particular?
can COVID-19 be passed from a woman to an unborn or newborn baby?
Come again, please, ma'am. I couldn't hear you.
Can COVID-19 be passed from a woman to her unborn or newborn baby?
Yeah. So there's a lot of cases nowadays coming in, like the pregnant ladies are known to be positive, right? So, but really the infants are not infected. So why? Because when they are inside the mother womb, right, the placenta sometimes will not allow some of the material to cross. But as such, if you concern a virus, they can travel through the placenta, right? But here the one good thing is that until unless the mother is a confined infection to only throat area, there will not be any viremia inside the blood. So only the contact to the infant is when they in the womb, it is to the blood, right? Until unless the virus become viremia, they cannot really infect. Whereas in case of HIV, yes, of course, because it is in the bloodstream, so definitely it can infect the infant as well. But in this case, it is confined to your throat. That's why I said if it is until in the throat, it will not harm to the kids. Whereas the moment it goes to the viremia stage, then definitely it can also cause to the infants also.
Okay, sir. Is there any particular blood group person will be prone to COVID-19?
Yeah, this is many people ask me, because there are some studies which shows that specifically A groups are much more prone to get COVID-19, and also male population is more prone to get COVID-19, right? There are some associations. If you look at the other way around, we need to do a lot of studies to prove that there is real association. Yes, of course, might be that, because as you are all aware that the RBC surface has a lot of polysaccharide which act as an antigen, right? A group, B group, C group, the O group. So when you talk about these polysaccharides, they may have some kind of affinity towards these viruses, because this virus spike protein is also heavily glycosylated. That's what we are not very much aware that how this interaction taken place. So we need to do a lot of studies and prove that there are some specific association to the some blood group. Might be sometime it could be just like a kind of coincidence that when you take a study for a large population, in that population might have been the one blood group would have been dominated. So to prove exact association with some specific blood group, you need a large set of population data from throughout the world, collect the data and segregate the blood group and see how severe they have developed, and really we can come up with some association with the blood group.
Sir, one more question, sir.
Yes,
Can you tell us about the reverse genetics used for vaccine production, sir?
yeah, so the reverse vaccinology is how it works is that those days it was entirely different. We didn't have any technology of sequencing and other stuff like that. So if you think about the bottom of the pyramid, right, it's everything starts from the central dogma of life, that is from DNA or RNA. That is the backbone, whatever the protein comes out. So how the reverse vaccinology work is that you decode the information from the RNA material, that is what are the bases it is and what amino acid it can produce. By looking at the amino acid, there are some bioinformatic tool to prove that which part of the protein can act as an antigenic in nature. So what we do is we generally take the genetic material, convert them into a protein, that is online translation, and then after in silico translation, take them to a software where they can really mimic the B cell receptors, HLA receptors. There are many tools available. You put them and see which part of the amino acid can really go and bind to the your macrophage MHC receptors or T cell receptors or B cell receptors, then they can produce antibody or not. So that's how the reverse vaccinology works, by taking the DNA to the protein. Whereas the normal normal vaccinology works by directly taking the protein and looking at the different part of a protein, which protein can. So that is laborious work. Whereas this recent advancement in reverse vaccinology help us to clearly get some targets and validate them.
So there's a very interesting question. Sir, it appears to be that shark has the topmost immune system. So why can't a vaccine or medicine can be developed from shark?
Shark. Yeah. So see, when you talk about these things, right, when you take some protein or some material from other animals, you know that when the moment you introduce to a human, right, they may act as an antigenic. So they will produce again antibody. They will again lot of immune reactions. Instead of treating a patient, you will making them into more risk because already they are in danger. If you introduce a foreign, if you imagine that the shark protein can act as a very good thing, so sometimes they can induce an immune response and then really kill the human. But one good interesting thing is that there are some animals, so something called like llama as well as camel antibodies. They are very effective if you make them as a immunized antibodies, then that can humanized antibodies. So because the human, you need to put all the amino acid as a human form, then they no more will be considered as a foreign, they will be considered as a human antibodies. So there will not be any immunogenicity created against our own immune response. So kind of monoclonal antibody therapy you can use. That's what Israel claimed. Yes, ma'am.
Can anyone get second time?
Of course, yes. There are a lot of chances. As previous question asked, a plasma therapy can effective in a different strain, right? Similarly, a person who's already infected, right? There are chances. I told you, like sometimes the virus can go in latency in some of the organs. They can come back. The next thing is the same virus can mutate in a different strain. Again, they can cause infection, or a new different virus from some other country would have traveled to the same country again back, and they can cause infections. So it's likely possible that you can get a secondary infections.
So one more question, sir. Natural medicines like aloe vera, tipili, kadukai, chitratai, all these have any effect on the immune system of patients? Sir?
Yeah, yes. Like I have been interacting with a lot of Siddha doctors because we are doing some researches because we are getting some interest from them. So what we do is like there are proven that these our traditional medicines really boosting our immune response. That's true, definitely. But as I said earlier, like it's killing the virus or not, we are not sure, because until unless you've proven in the laboratory that it is really reducing the viral load, then only we can claim that it is an antiviral. But as such, a immunomodulator, yes, of course, there's a lot of studies and proven mechanisms in human as well as animals as well as cell lines. It's proven. So there are a lot of immunomodulatory effects of our traditional medicines.
This research is going on under that, sir?
Yeah, there's a lot of research going on. Even we are doing some research on those traditional medicines. by using bioinformatics as well as the wet lab work. Wet lab work was such we didn't start it because we need to have a very good sophisticated laboratory BSL-3 facility. So we had to start that.
So the virus changes its structure. That's why it is delaying to get vaccine or to get medicine.
No, not really, because as I said, no, like so this is my what we did from our study, I'm saying. So far when we analyzed, we could see, definitely we could see some amino acid changes, but I would say not drastically. So one thing we should understand is that most of the RNA viruses tend to rapidly mutate themselves. But one good thing about coronavirus is that it's not that rapid, I would say. Yes, of course, they are mutating, but not very rapidly. And if you consider the mutations, some of them are synonymous, which means that after the mutation at the genome level, they are again same amino acids coming in, or some of the close cells amino acids. So structurally, there is not much difference in them. Of course, if you develop a vaccine, definitely we need to consider about the coverage of the vaccine, because if you take the only one ethnicity viruses and design a vaccine, it will not work on the, say for example, somebody who developed a vaccine only looking at the virus from the UK. This will not help to protect the viruses in India or China or US. So we need to have a pandemic strains, collect them all together and design a vaccine which can completely cover all these things. So the general thing is vaccine is not generally developed to the areas where confined to hotspots, that is lots of mutations. Mostly confined to the areas which are very conserved, and also they should have a very potent immunogenic property. Otherwise, it's waste. If you select some area which is not immunogenic but very conserved, again, that is useless. Yes,
So
ma'am.
I think we can stop with the question session now. There are few more questions, but due to the lack of time,
Sure.
we would
So I
like
could
to
see
stop with the.
one question. Some COVID patients report intestinal disturbance like diarrhea. What are the main cause of these disorders? Okay, very interesting, because like as I said, yes, of course, these coronaviruses can cause diarrhea. One of the important factor is that our intestinal differentiated cells have a lot of ACE2 receptors, which is also present in the throat or lung. So that is the main reason why these viruses bind firmly to the enterocytes as well. That is our intestinal cell as well, and then they cause diarrhea. That is the reason why it causes. But generally, as far as now, like roughly 40% of the population showed diarrheal symptoms, but not all of them. Initially, it was 10%, but now it has increased to 40%. That's why I said like the virus is slowly getting adapted to the human environment and tend to behave very differently. So we have to wait and watch.
There was a
different
question
symptoms.
about that also, sir.
Yes,
Like every virus has got a lifespan, and so does this coronavirus also have a lifespan, and slowly it will wear off? Is it anything like that?
No, the lifespan as such, you talk about lifespan, right? So generally, not like bacteria, these doesn't have any lifespan, because once even it come out of the human body, they can be as such. After many years, also they can come and infect you. So they once they emerge, right, they will be stay back in somewhere. They can evolve anytime. So maybe in future we encounter this coronaviruses like how common cold seasonally we are getting. So they will get adapted to the human and then cause very mild infections. You know that like in US every year 1 million people are dying because of a common food.
That's what even I wanted to ask, sir. All of us are very immune to this common cold and like sneezing, throat infection, cold. So nowadays an ordinary cold or ordinary running nose, it gives us a panic attack. So now how can we differentiate it from a normal cold and a common cold or normal cold to a coronavirus?
True. So that's what I said in some of my slides. I told you like there are a lot of similarities to the common cold as well as flu with the current coronaviruses. So generally, you talk about differential diagnosis compared to the cold. Common cold is really difficult because most of the symptoms are similar to it. As I said, you can rank them as such. So I have this cold for this many days, and I have some breathing problem. I have a travel history and diarrhea also, because generally cold will not have diarrhea. Very rarely you can have. So some of these, like, you can correlate and you can imagine that you have a body pain, myalgia. Now, like WHO said that fever, chill, and so there are many factors, including coming in with a lot of symptoms. So really, you cannot able to differentiate from common cold. Yes, of course, if you keep putting your scores for different symptoms, then definitely you can know. And unless you diagnose, you may not aware that you have a COVID-19 or not. Diagnosis is the only way to say that you have a COVID-19.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
Very
thank you.
informative and very useful at the time.
Thank
I
you
think
so
we've
much.
got a clear idea of our attacker, our enemy, so that we also can be build our immune system and attack the enemy which is attacking us.
Thank
And
you so much.
also we can be helpful to others. So thank you
Definitely.
very much, sir. Over to
Thank you.
Dr. Parimala for the vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank our management secretary, sir, Mr. NRD Prem Kumar, and joint secretary, sir, Dr. P.R. Premchand, for having faith in us and giving us an opportunity to organize a live webinar. And my sincere thanks to our principal ma'am, Dr. Kamala Balakrishnan, and vice principal ma'am, Mrs. Jafia Solomon, and the IQAC team for their encouragement and support. My sincere thanks to the speaker, Dr. Naveen Kumar sir, for accepting our invitation in spite of his busy schedule and spending his valuable time with us. Thank you, sir. The information and knowledge that you have shared with us has brought an insight into the subject. Many doubts we have, you have clarified everything. The question answer section was really wonderful. It would have helped many of us who is unknown about many things. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank Anne Violet and management and all the staffs for arranging this. And also thank you for all the participants who joined.
Yes, my gratitude to the technical team who is working behind the screen and helping us. Thank you, Mr. Yonesh Kumar, Mr. Vinod, and Mr. Loganathan, who is working behind the screen and helping us. Finally, I thank the staff, students, and all the virtual participants for their enthusiastic participation and asking questions, showing their interest. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Jafia ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. We can close the session now.
Yes.